My son was standing in my kitchen with his wife Tasha when he told me I needed to sign over the timber rights to the 240 acres of forest land my husband and I bought in 1978, the land that generated $42,000 annually in sustainable logging royalties, the land I'd planned to leave to him someday. Because Tasha's brother needed to liquidate the timber quickly for a business opportunity, and they'd already promised him access. Mom, we're family now. What's yours is ours. Tasha's brother Marcus has a buyer lined up. The timber's worth about $680,000 if we clear-cut everything. We'll split it with you. You'll get $340,000. That's fair. I looked at my son, at Donovan, 41 years old, the child I'd raised alone after his father died, the man I'd put through college, the person I'd trusted with everything. That land generates $42,000 a year, forever, if you manage it right. You want me to destroy that for a one-time payment? Mom, you're 77. You don't need forever income. You need cash now. $340,000 is more than you'd make in 8 years of royalties. It's smart financial planning. It's destroying sustainable income for a quick payout. Donovan, your father and I built that timber income to last generations, to provide for family long-term. You want to clear-cut it all for Marcus's business deal. Tasha spoke up. Geneva, with all respect, you're thinking small. Marcus has an opportunity that could turn $680,000 into millions. He's investing in a development project. If you help us now, you'll benefit when it pays off. What development project? A resort community, luxury cabins, golf course. It's going to be huge. And if it fails? It won't fail. Marcus knows what he's doing. I looked at both of them, at my son who'd stopped calling me Mom and started calling me Geneva like Tasha did, at my daughter-in-law who'd been married to Donovan for 3 years and had slowly convinced him that his mother's assets should fund her family's schemes. No. What? Donovan looked shocked. No, I'm not signing over timber rights. That land stays as it is, sustainably managed, generating annual income. Mom, this is happening whether you help or not. We're asking nicely. We're offering you a fair split, but Marcus needs this. Tasha needs this, and I'm choosing to support my wife's family. You're choosing Tasha over me. I'm choosing my wife. That's what married people do. And Mom, if you can't support that, if you're going to make me pick sides, then yes, I pick her. Always. I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't beg him to reconsider. I just looked at my son, at the man who just told me he'd chosen his wife's family's financial scheme over preserving what his father and I had built. And I understood something important. This wasn't about one decision. This was about who Donovan had become. Someone who saw my assets as resources for Tasha's family. Someone who'd pressure his mother to destroy sustainable income for a risky business deal. Someone who'd frame that pressure as choosing his wife. I see. You've made your choice. Now I'll make mine. What does that mean? It means I'm not signing anything. And Donovan, you've shown me who you are. I'm going to remember that. Are you threatening me? I'm telling you I see clearly. That's all. They left angry, and I sat in my kitchen thinking about what had just happened. My son had chosen his wife over me, had told me to my face, had expected me to accept it because that's what married people do. And when I'd refused to fund their scheme, he'd acted like I was being difficult, selfish, unreasonable. I didn't argue with his characterization. I calculated. They thought I was weak, thought I'd eventually cave to family pressure, thought choosing Tasha meant he had power over me. That was their first mistake. Now listen, before I tell you what happened when my son chose his wife's family over his own mother and thought I'd just accept it, before I show you what a 77-year-old woman with 240 acres of timber land can do when she stops being nice, I need you to do something. If you're watching this and someone has ever told you to your face they're choosing someone else over you, hit subscribe right now. Comment where you're from. Because what happened when I stopped arguing and started planning, you need to hear every second. Turn on notifications. This goes places Donovan never imagined. After they left, I made 3 calls. First, to my timber management company. Richard, this is Geneva Wallace. I need you to do something for me. If anyone, and I mean anyone, contacts you about logging contracts or timber sales on my 240 acres, you do not engage. You refer them to my attorney. No exceptions. Mrs. Wallace, is something wrong? My son and his wife are trying to pressure me into clear-cutting the forest for a business deal. I need to make sure they can't go around me. They can't. You're the sole owner. We have your signature on file. No one can authorize logging without you. But Mrs. Wallace, I'll flag your account. Any inquiries get redirected to your attorney. Thank you, Richard. Second, to my attorney, Lorraine Harper. Lorraine, I need to update my will immediately, and I need to add protections to my timber land. What kind of protections? My son wants me to sign over timber rights so his brother-in-law can clear-cut everything. I refused. He told me he's choosing his wife over me. Lorraine, I need to make sure that even if something happens to me, that land can't be destroyed. We can put the land in a conservation trust, with stipulations about sustainable management. Even your heirs couldn't clear-cut it. The trust would own the land, and your beneficiaries would receive the annual royalties but couldn't liquidate the timber. Perfect, do it. And Lorraine, change my will. Donovan gets nothing. Everything goes to my goddaughter, Cecily. If Donovan wants to choose Tasha's family over me, he can inherit from them instead. Geneva, are you sure? Disinheriting your only child is exactly what I should do when that child tries to pressure me into destroying assets for his wife's brother's scheme. Lorraine, I'm sure. Change everything. Third, to my goddaughter. Cecily, I need to tell you something. I'm changing my will. Everything comes to you now, not Donovan. Aunt Geneva, what happened? I told her everything. The timber land, Marcus's development scheme, Donovan choosing Tasha, the pressure to sign over rights. He actually said he chooses her over you. To my face, said that's what married people do. Cecily, I raised him alone after his father died, put him through college, helped him start his business. And now he's telling me I need to destroy sustainable income to fund his brother-in-law's resort fantasy. What are you going to do? I'm protecting my assets, securing my legacy, and I'm letting Donovan face the consequences of choosing Tasha over his mother. Cecily, if something happens to me, the timber land goes into a conservation trust. You'll get the annual royalties, but nobody can ever clear-cut it. Not Donovan, not Marcus, nobody. Aunt Geneva, are you safe? I'm worried about you. I'm fine, just being strategic. Cecily, I need you to be aware of what's happening. If Donovan or Tasha contact you, don't engage. Refer them to Lorraine. I will. Aunt Geneva, I'm sorry Donovan did this. So am I. That evening, I sat thinking about Donovan, about when he'd changed, about how Tasha had slowly isolated him from me, how she'd reframed every conversation to make me the problem. It had started small. Your mom is so controlling. Your mom doesn't respect our marriage. Your mom treats you like a child. Then bigger. Your mom has so much money she doesn't even need. Why can't she help us? Your mom is selfish with her assets. Your mom doesn't support our family. And finally, you need to choose me or her, your wife or your mother. Donovan had chosen, and Tasha had won. Or so she thought. 3 days after the kitchen confrontation, Donovan called. Mom, we need to talk. About your reaction, about how you're handling this. I'm not interested in talking. You can't just shut down because I'm supporting my wife. That's childish. I'm not shutting down. I'm making decisions about my assets and my life. Donovan, you told me you choose Tasha over me. I heard you. Now I'm choosing to protect myself from people who see my land as something to liquidate for Marcus's business deal. It's not just Marcus's deal. It's our opportunity. As a family. But Mom, you're too stubborn to see it. I see perfectly clearly. You want me to destroy $42,000 in annual income for a one-time payment that you'll split with Marcus. You want me to clear-cut forest land your father and I bought 45 years ago. And when I said no, you told me you're choosing your wife over me. Donovan, I understand completely. Then you should understand that Tasha is my priority now, not you. I do understand, and I'm making my plans accordingly. What does that mean? It means I'm updating my estate documents, making sure my assets are protected. That's all you need to know. Are you changing your will? That's between me and my attorney. Mom, if you cut me out of your will over this. Over what? Over you choosing Tasha. Over you pressuring me to destroy sustainable income. Over you telling me your wife's brother's needs matter more than preserving what your father and I built. Donovan, you made your choice. I'm making mine. He hung up on me, and I sat holding the phone, thinking about how we'd gotten here. I didn't cry. I remembered. I remembered raising Donovan alone after cancer took his father when Donovan was 12. Remembered working 2 jobs to keep our home. Remembered saving for his college when I could barely afford groceries. I remembered helping him start his consulting business. The $50,000 I'd loaned him that he'd never repaid. The connections I'd given him. The support through his divorce from his first wife. I remembered being there for everything. And now he was telling me Tasha was his priority, not me. That was the moment I understood I'd lost my son. Not to death. To someone who'd convinced him his mother was an obstacle to overcome instead of a person who'd sacrificed everything for him. 1 week after the phone call, something happened that showed me how far they were willing to go. I received a letter from the county planning department. Notice of a timber harvesting permit application for my 240 acres, filed by Marcus Chen, authorized representative for Wallace Family Timber LLC. They'd created a fake company, filed for permits, tried to go around me to access my timber. I called Lorraine immediately. They're trying to steal my timber, filed permits under a fake company name. That's fraud. Geneva, we need to respond formally. Shut this down legally. Do it. And Lorraine, I want documentation. I want proof they tried to steal from me, because when this is over, I want everyone to know what they did. Lorraine filed formal objections, notified the county that Wallace Family Timber LLC was fraudulent, that I was the sole owner and had not authorized any permits, that this was attempted theft. The county investigation started immediately, and 3 days later, I got a call from a county investigator named Paul Winters. Mrs. Wallace, we've reviewed the permit application. The company that filed Wallace Family Timber LLC was created 2 weeks ago. The registered agent is Marcus Chen. He claims to have power of attorney over your timber assets. Do you know Mr. Chen? He's my daughter-in-law's brother. I've never given him power of attorney over anything. He has no authority to file permits on my land. Can you provide documentation proving you're the sole owner and he has no authority? I have the deed. I have my will. I have letters from my timber management company. I have everything you need. I sent everything to Investigator Winters. Within 2 days, he called back. Mrs. Wallace, we're referring this case to the district attorney. Mr. Chen filed fraudulent documents claiming authority he doesn't have. That's forgery and attempted theft. Are you willing to press charges? Absolutely. What about your son? Documents show he's listed as vice president of the fake company. He's complicit in the fraud. My son, listed as VP of a company created to steal my timber. Press charges against both of them. Marcus and Donovan, they did this together. After the call, I sat with what I'd just done. I'd agreed to criminal charges against my own son, against Donovan. Part of me felt terrible. He was my child, my only child. But a larger part felt calm, because Donovan had made his choice. He'd chosen Tasha, chosen Marcus, chosen fraud and theft over honoring his mother. I was just accepting reality and protecting myself. That evening, Tasha called. First time she'd ever called me directly. Geneva, you need to drop these charges. Marcus made a mistake. He thought he had authority. This is all a misunderstanding. He created a fake company using my property name, filed fraudulent permits. That's not a misunderstanding. That's theft. He was trying to help the family. By stealing from me. Tasha, your brother tried to steal $680,000 worth of timber. That's a crime. You're destroying our family over this. I'm not destroying anything. Marcus destroyed it when he committed fraud. Donovan destroyed it when he helped him. Donovan is your son. How can you press charges against your own child? How can my son help steal from his own mother? Tasha, you want to talk about family loyalty? Your husband is listed as vice president of a fake company created to rob me. That's who he chose to be. I'm just responding accordingly. If you don't drop these charges, you'll never see Donovan again. He'll cut you off completely. He already did. The moment he told me he chose you over me. Tasha, I'm 77 years old. I've lived through my husband's death, raised a son alone, built assets through careful planning. I'm not going to let you and your brother destroy what I've built because Donovan's too blind to see he's being used. You're a bitter old woman who can't accept that your son has moved on. I'm a woman protecting herself from thieves, even when one of those thieves is my son. She hung up, and I sat thinking about that conversation. Tasha had called me bitter, old, unable to accept Donovan moving on. That was the narrative. I was the problem, the controlling mother, the bitter woman who couldn't let go. Not them, not the people who'd created a fake company to steal timber, not the son who'd chosen fraud over honoring his mother. Me, I was the villain in their story. I didn't argue with the characterization. I observed it. They thought time was on their side, thought I'd eventually drop charges because family doesn't prosecute family, thought guilt would make me cave. They were wrong. 2 weeks after the county investigation started, the district attorney filed formal charges. Marcus Chen, fraud, forgery, attempted theft. Donovan Wallace, conspiracy, fraud, being an accessory to attempted theft. Both facing up to 5 years in prison if convicted. The arraignment was scheduled for 3 weeks out, and I knew I'd have to be there, face my son in court, watch him be arraigned on charges of trying to steal from me. The night before the arraignment, I couldn't sleep, kept thinking about Donovan as a child, as a teenager, as a young man starting his business. When had he become someone who'd create a fake company to rob his mother? I didn't have answers, just sadness and resolve. At the arraignment, I sat in the courtroom, watched Donovan and Marcus stand before the judge, watched them plead not guilty, watched the judge set bail. Donovan looked at me once. His expression was pure hatred. My son looked at me with hatred because I'd pressed charges after he tried to steal from me. That look told me everything. He didn't see what he'd done wrong. He saw me as the villain for holding him accountable. After the arraignment, as I left the courthouse, Tasha approached me. "Are you happy now, seeing your son treated like a criminal?" "I'm seeing my son face consequences for criminal behavior. There's a difference. You could have just signed the timber rights over, avoided all of this, but you were too selfish. I could have let you steal from me to avoid conflict, but I wasn't too weak. Tasha, you thought I was weak, thought Donovan choosing you over me meant you'd won. That was your mistake. This isn't over, Geneva. We'll fight these charges. We'll win. And when we do, Donovan will never speak to you again. He already doesn't speak to me. Tasha, you took my son. Fine, but you're not taking my land." She walked away, and I stood outside the courthouse, thinking about what came next. A trial, testimony, evidence, my son's criminal defense. All of it public, all of it documented, all of it showing what Donovan had become. 3 weeks after the arraignment, I received a call from Cecily. "Aunt Geneva, I need to tell you something. Donovan contacted me." "What did he want?" "He wanted me to convince you to drop the charges, said this was all a misunderstanding, that Marcus thought he had authority, that you're destroying the family over nothing." "What did you tell him?" "I told him I'd seen the evidence, the fake company documents, the forged permits, the investigation reports, that it wasn't a misunderstanding, it was fraud. Aunt Geneva," he got angry, "said you'd poison me against him, that I was choosing you over him. He's making everyone choose sides. Tasha taught him that. You're either with them or against them." There's no middle ground. I chose you. I told him that. He hung up on me. I'm sorry, Cecily. I didn't want you dragged into this. I'm not dragged in. I'm standing with you. Aunt Geneva, what they tried to do was criminal. You're right to press charges. Don't let guilt make you drop them. That conversation mattered because it meant I wasn't alone. Wasn't the only one who saw clearly what had happened. Cecily understood, and she'd chosen to stand with me even when it cost her relationship with Donovan. 1 month after the arraignment, Donovan's attorney called Lorraine. My client wants to discuss a plea deal. If Mrs. Wallace drops the charges, Donovan will agree to have no contact with her for 5 years. He'll sign away any inheritance rights. He'll acknowledge the fraud, but he wants to avoid prison. Lorraine relayed the offer to me. Geneva, this could end it. Donovan admits guilt, gives up inheritance rights, stays away from you. No trial, no testimony, just consequences and separation. What about Marcus? The DA would probably offer him a similar deal. Restitution, probation, no contact. I thought about it for 2 days. About whether I wanted to put Donovan in prison. About whether avoiding trial was worth accepting a plea deal. Finally, I called Lorraine back. Tell Donovan's attorney I'll agree to the plea deal on one condition. What condition? Donovan has to write a letter explaining what he did, why he did it, acknowledging that he chose Tasha and Marcus over me, admitting he helped create a fake company to steal from me. I want it in writing, signed, notarized, part of the official record. Why? Because someday, maybe years from now, someone will ask what happened between me and my son, and I want documentation showing exactly what he chose. I want proof that I didn't abandon him. He tried to rob me. Lorraine presented my terms. Donovan's attorney agreed. 3 weeks later, I received the letter. 2 pages, handwritten, notarized. I, Donovan Wallace, acknowledge that I participated in creating Wallace Family Timber LLC with the intent to file fraudulent permits to harvest timber from my mother's land without her authorization. I did this because my wife's brother Marcus needed money for a business venture, and I chose to support him rather than honor my mother's wishes for her land. I acknowledge that my mother, Geneva Wallace, told me no, that I pressured her anyway, that when she refused, I tried to go around her through fraud. I acknowledge that I told my mother I was choosing my wife over her, that I expected her to accept this and fund our plans anyway, that when she didn't, I participated in criminal activity. I acknowledge that my mother had every right to press charges, that I committed crimes against her, that I destroyed our relationship through my choices. I am accepting this plea deal to avoid prison, but I acknowledge my guilt. I acknowledge what I did, and I acknowledge that Geneva Wallace was right to protect herself from me. I read the letter 3 times, my son admitting in writing that he'd tried to steal from me, that he'd chosen Tasha over me, that I'd been right to press charges. It was the closure I needed, not reconciliation, not apology, just truth. The plea deal was finalized 2 weeks later. Donovan, 3 years probation, $25,000 restitution, 5 years no contact, forfeiture of all inheritance rights. Marcus, same terms. Both accepted, both signed. And just like that, it was over. No trial, no testimony, just documented guilt and permanent separation. After the plea hearing, I sat in my car thinking about what I'd done. I'd prosecuted my son, taken everything from him, inheritance, contact, relationship, made him sign a confession. Some people would say I was cruel, vindictive, that I destroyed my family over money. But those people didn't understand. This wasn't about money. It was about being valued as a person instead of seen as a resource to exploit. Donovan had chosen Tasha over me, had told me to my face, had expected me to accept it and fund their schemes anyway. When I didn't, when I protected myself, he'd tried to steal from me. That was who he'd chosen to be, someone who'd defraud his own mother when she set boundaries. I hadn't destroyed our family. He had. I just refused to pretend it didn't happen. 6 months after the plea deal, Cecily and I went to visit the timberland. walked through the forest, listened to the trees. Aunt Geneva, how do you feel about everything that happened? Sad, relieved, clear, Donovan chose Tasha over me, thought I was weak, thought I'd cave to pressure or guilt. He was wrong. Do you think you'll ever reconcile? No, the no-contact order is 5 years. But honestly, Cecily, I don't want reconciliation. Donovan showed me who he is, someone who'd steal from his mother. I can't unsee that. I can't trust him again. So this is permanent. Yes, and Cecily, I'm okay with that, because I protected what matters. This land, these trees, the $42,000 annual income that will continue long after I'm gone. Donovan wanted to destroy all of it for Marcus's resort fantasy. I stopped him. That was the right choice. We stood in the forest, quiet, peaceful, protected. And I thought about Donovan's words. I'm choosing my wife over you. He'd thought that made him strong, loyal, a good husband. Really, it had shown his weakness, his inability to see manipulation, his willingness to betray his mother for Tasha's approval. He'd chosen Tasha over me. I hadn't argued, hadn't begged, hadn't tried to compete. I'd just protected myself, documented everything, let him face consequences. He'd thought I was weak, thought silence meant submission. That was his mistake, and it had cost him everything. I stood in the forest, the 240 acres that would never be clear-cut, the trees that would keep generating income for generations, and I knew I'd made the right choice. Donovan had chosen Tasha. I'd chosen truth. And when forced to pick between family harmony built on theft or painful separation built on integrity, I'd chosen integrity. Some would say that made me cold, bitter, unforgiving. I'd say it made me strong, clear, unbreakable. Donovan thought I was weak when I didn't argue. He learned too late that my silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. And that strategy had saved everything that mattered. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. 2 years after the plea deal, I was 79 and living quietly when I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Wallace, this is Karen Odom. I'm a social worker with the State Family Services Division. I need to speak with you about a case we're investigating. It involves your son, Donovan Wallace. My stomach dropped. What kind of case? I can't discuss details over the phone. Can you come to our office tomorrow at 10 a.m.? It's important. I arrived at the Family Services office the next morning. Karen Odom was a woman in her 50s, professional but kind. Mrs. Wallace, thank you for coming. I need to ask you some questions about your relationship with your son and his wife. We don't have a relationship. There's a no-contact order from a criminal case 2 years ago. I'm aware. That's actually why I called you. Mrs. Wallace, Tasha Wallace applied for emergency custody of a child 6 months ago, a little girl named Meadow. She claimed to be the child's aunt and said the mother was unfit. The state granted temporary custody while we investigated. I don't understand. What does this have to do with me? Karen pulled out a file. We've completed our investigation, and Mrs. Wallace, we've discovered that Tasha and Donovan fabricated the entire situation. There is no mother. There is no unfit parent. Meadow isn't Tasha's niece. She's the daughter of a woman named Lisa Chen, Marcus's ex-girlfriend. Marcus wanted custody to access the child's trust fund. I felt cold. Trust fund. Meadow's grandfather died 2 years ago and left her $850,000 in a trust. It pays out when she turns 18. But there's a provision. If Meadow's guardian can prove educational or medical expenses, they can access funds early. Marcus wanted custody so he could drain the trust. And Donovan helped him. Yes, Donovan and Tasha filed false reports claiming Lisa was on drugs, neglecting Meadow, unfit to parent. They provided fake witnesses, forged documents, built an entire case to take custody of a child so Marcus could steal her trust fund. I sat back, processing what I was hearing. Donovan hadn't learned, hadn't changed. 2 years after pleading guilty to fraud against me, he was committing fraud again, against a child this time. Where's Meadow now? Back with her mother. We returned custody as soon as we discovered the fraud. Lisa Chen is a good mother, works as a nurse, takes excellent care of her daughter. Everything Donovan and Tasha said about her was lies. Mrs. Wallace, we're filing criminal charges. Conspiracy, fraud, child endangerment. Donovan is looking at serious prison time. You said there's a trust fund provision for expenses. Did they access any money? Corinne's face hardened. They accessed $180,000 over 6 months for educational therapy that never happened. They drained nearly a quarter of that child's inheritance on fake expenses and kept the money. My God. Mrs. Wallace, I need to ask, would you be willing to testify about Donovan's history, about the fraud he committed against you? It would establish a pattern of behavior. Show this wasn't a mistake but a systematic approach to stealing from family members. Yes, I'll testify. After the meeting, I sat in my car thinking about what I just learned. Donovan hadn't just chosen Tasha over me. He'd chosen a lifestyle of fraud, of finding vulnerable people and manipulating systems to steal from them. First me and my timberland. Now a 7-year-old child and her trust fund. I called Cecily. Donovan's being charged with fraud again, this time against a child. What happened? I explained everything. The fake custody case, the trust fund, the $180,000 stolen from Meadow's inheritance. Aunt Geneva, he's gotten worse, not better. I know. Cecily, I'm going to testify against him, about what he did to me, to show the pattern. Are you sure? That's going to be hard. It's necessary. A 7-year-old girl lost $180,000 because Donovan and Tasha wanted money. If my testimony helps convict them, helps get that money back, then it's worth it. 3 months later, I was sitting in a courtroom waiting to testify. I'd already watched Lisa Chen testify, a young woman, maybe 35, clearly devastated by what had happened to her daughter. They told me I was unfit, that I was losing custody. I didn't understand how it happened so fast. I was terrified. And the whole time they were stealing from Meadow, using her. My baby was a tool to them, just a way to access money. When it was my turn, the prosecutor walked me through everything. The timberland, the fake company, the fraudulent permits, Donovan's plea deal and confession. Mrs. Wallace, when your son told you he was choosing his wife over you, what did you think he meant? I thought he meant he was prioritizing his marriage. I didn't understand he meant he was choosing a criminal partnership. That he'd help his wife's family steal from anyone vulnerable, his mother, a child, anyone with assets they wanted. Did you believe your son was capable of this level of fraud back then? No, I thought he was making a mistake, being pressured by Tasha. I didn't understand he'd become someone who sees people as resources to exploit. But Mrs. Wallace, watching what he did to Meadow, seeing that he learned nothing from prosecuting me, I understand now. Donovan doesn't see victims, he sees opportunities. Donovan's attorney cross-examined. Mrs. Wallace, isn't it true you have a history of conflict with your son, that you've held grudges? I have a history of being defrauded by my son. That's not a grudge. That's documented criminal behavior. But you pressed charges against him, took his inheritance, enforced a no-contact order. Doesn't that show vindictiveness rather than legitimate concern? No, it shows self-protection. And if I'd been vindictive instead of protective, maybe I would have warned Lisa Chen. Maybe I would have made Donovan's fraud history more public. Maybe Meadow would still have her full trust fund. That landed. The jury's expressions shifted. I wasn't the vindictive mother. I was someone who tried to handle family crime privately, and a child had paid the price. After my testimony, the prosecutor called a financial investigator. We traced the $180,000 taken from Meadow's trust. $75,000 went to paying down Donovan and Tasha's debts. $60,000 went to Marcus for his development project, which we've determined never existed. $45,000 is unaccounted for, likely spent on personal expenses. The trial lasted a week. The evidence was overwhelming. Fake documents, false reports, testimony from social workers who'd been manipulated, Lisa Chen's medical records proving she'd never had drug problems, bank records showing where the money went. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, found Donovan guilty on all counts: conspiracy, fraud, child endangerment, theft. Found Tasha guilty on all counts. Found Marcus guilty on all counts. Sentencing was scheduled for 6 weeks later. The prosecution was asking for 8 years for Donovan, 10 for Marcus, who'd orchestrated it, 6 for Tasha, who'd executed the custody fraud. I sat in the courtroom after the verdict, watching Donovan be led away in handcuffs. He looked at me once. The hatred was still there, but something else too. Recognition. Finally, he understood. I wasn't weak. I was the reason he was going to prison. 6 weeks later, at sentencing, the judge asked if I wanted to make a statement. I stood. Your Honor, Donovan Wallace is my son. I raised him alone after his father died. I gave him everything. And 4 years ago, he told me he was choosing his wife over me. I didn't argue. I thought he meant his marriage. I didn't understand he meant he was choosing fraud as a lifestyle. When he tried to steal my timberland, I prosecuted him. People told me I was cruel. That family doesn't send family to prison. But I knew if I didn't stop him, he'd do it again. To someone else. Someone more vulnerable. I was right. Donovan chose a 7-year-old child as his next victim. Stole $180,000 from her future. And Your Honor, if I'd been weaker, if I'd dropped charges 4 years ago, if I'd accepted his plea for mercy, Meadow would have lost even more. Because Donovan doesn't stop. He doesn't learn. He just finds new victims. I'm asking you to sentence him appropriately. Not because he's my son and I'm angry, but because he's proven that without serious consequences, he'll keep destroying lives for money. The judge sentenced Donovan to 9 years, Tasha to 7, Marcus to 12. All 3 were ordered to pay full restitution to Meadow's trust, $180,000 plus interest, split among them. After sentencing, Lisa Chen approached me in the hallway. Mrs. Wallace, thank you for testifying, for being honest about what he did to you. The prosecutor said your testimony was crucial. I'm sorry I didn't warn you. I didn't know he was capable of this. You prosecuted him 4 years ago. You tried to stop him. Mrs. Wallace, you're not responsible for what he did to my daughter. Donovan is. But thank you for helping make sure he can't hurt anyone else for a while. That evening, I sat at home thinking about Donovan. 9 years in prison. He'd be 51 when he got out. I felt sad, but not guilty. I'd given him every chance, every opportunity to change. After the timber fraud, he could have gotten help, gone to therapy, examined why he'd chosen fraud over family. Instead, he'd found new victims. A child, an innocent 7-year-old whose only crime was having money Donovan wanted. Some people would say 9 years was too harsh, that he was my son and I should have advocated for mercy. But I'd learned something important. Mercy without accountability doesn't help anyone. It just enables more harm. Donovan needed to face full consequences. Maybe 9 years would teach him what probation hadn't. But I wasn't holding my breath. 1 year after Donovan's sentencing, I received a letter, prison mail, from him. I almost threw it away without reading, but curiosity won. Mom, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know the no contact order expired, but you've made it clear we're done. I'm not writing to ask for anything. I'm writing because my therapist says I need to acknowledge what I did. I chose Tasha over you. I told you that to your face. I expected you to just accept it, to keep supporting me anyway because that's what you'd always done. When you didn't, when you protected yourself, I got angry. I blamed you. I told myself you were bitter and controlling and couldn't accept that I'd moved on. I didn't see what I was really doing. Using you, seeing your assets as my future inheritance that I could access early if I pushed hard enough. When you stopped me, I didn't learn. I just found another victim. Meadow. A 7-year-old child whose trust fund looked like a solution to our problems. Mom, I destroyed our family. I destroyed a child's security. I destroyed my own life. All for money I didn't earn and didn't deserve. Tasha left me, filed for divorce 6 months into my sentence, said she couldn't be married to a convicted felon. So the wife I chose over you, she's gone. The brother-in-law I helped, he won't even accept my calls. The money I stole, it has to be paid back with money I don't have. I have nothing, I am nothing, and I earned every bit of it. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just acknowledging you were right about everything, and I was wrong. I chose Tasha over you because I thought you were weak, thought your silence meant you'd accept anything. I learned too late that your silence was strength, was strategy. Was you protecting yourself from people who only valued you for what they could take? I'm sorry, Mom. Not because I want something, because it's true. Donovan. I read the letter 3 times. My son finally understanding, finally seeing what he'd done. 8 years too late, after destroying multiple lives, after going to prison. But understanding, finally. I didn't respond to the letter, didn't visit, didn't write back. Because understanding wasn't enough. Remorse wasn't enough. Donovan had made choices, systematic, repeated choices to defraud and harm people. He was facing consequences. That was appropriate. My forgiveness wouldn't help him, wouldn't teach him anything he hadn't already learned the hard way. He'd chosen Tasha over me, thought I was weak, learned I wasn't. That lesson had cost him everything, as it should have. 2 years after Donovan's sentencing, something unexpected happened. I received a call from Meadow's mother, Lisa. Mrs. Wallace, I hope it's okay that I'm calling. I wanted to update you on Meadow and to ask you something. Of course, how is she? She's doing well, turned 9 last month. She's in therapy processing what happened. But Mrs. Wallace, she knows you testified. She knows you helped make sure Donovan and the others were convicted. She asked if she could meet you, to say thank you. She wants to meet me. Yes, if you're comfortable with that. She's a smart kid. She understands that Donovan is your son. She knows that testifying was hard. She wants to tell you herself that she's grateful. We met at a park. Meadow was small for 9, bright eyes, serious expression. Mrs. Wallace, my mom says you helped send the bad people to jail, even though one of them was your son. I did, because what they did to you was wrong. And Meadow, I'm sorry my son hurt you. Sorry he stole from you. It's not your fault. You didn't steal. He did. Mrs. Wallace, my mom says you tried to stop him before, that you put him in jail already for trying to steal from you. So you tried to stop him and he didn't listen. That's not your fault. I felt tears starting. Thank you for understanding that. Mrs. Wallace, can I ask you something? Why did you testify? He's your son. Weren't you supposed to protect him? I was protecting you, and protecting everyone else he might hurt in the future. Meadow, being someone's mother doesn't mean accepting when they do terrible things. It means holding them accountable, even when it hurts. My mom says that's what love is, real love, not letting people hurt others even when you love them. Your mom is very wise. After the meeting, Lisa pulled me aside. Mrs. Wallace, Meadow's trust fund has been restored. The restitution payments are coming through, but there's something else. Meadow wants to do something with some of the money. She wants to create a program to help other kids whose families try to steal from them. She asked if you'd help her set it up. Me. You're the person who stopped Donovan. Twice. You understand how this happens, how family members exploit people who trust them. Meadow thinks you're the right person to help make sure other kids don't go through what she did. Over the next year, Lisa, Meadow, and I created the Meadow Project, a nonprofit that provided legal support for children whose guardians were misusing their assets. We helped 3 kids in the first year, 7 the second year. At 81, I'd become an accidental advocate for children being exploited by family members. The knowledge I'd gained from being exploited by my own son was now protecting other children from the same thing. 3 years after Donovan's sentencing, Cecily came to visit. We walked the timberland like we did every few months. Aunt Geneva, do you ever regret it, prosecuting Donovan, testifying against him? No, I regret that he became someone who needed to be prosecuted, but I don't regret stopping him. Cecily, if I'd been weak, if I'd dropped charges, if I'd accepted his choice of Tasha and his fraud, Meadow would have lost everything. Maybe other kids, too. How many victims was I supposed to allow to protect my son from consequences? None, you were right. But Aunt Geneva, it must have been lonely, losing your only child. I didn't lose him. He chose to leave, chose Tasha, chose fraud, chose victims over family. I just refused to pretend it didn't happen. And Cecily, I'm not lonely. I have you. I have the work with Meadow. I have this land that's still generating income, still protected. I have a life built on truth instead of enabling lies. Donovan's release is coming up. 3 more years. Are you worried? No, the no-contact order is permanent now, part of his parole conditions. He can't contact me without violating parole. And honestly, I don't think he will. Tasha's gone. Marcus won't talk to him. He has nothing to gain from me anymore. I think he'll rebuild elsewhere, away from me. Do you think he's changed? I think prison taught him that consequences are real. Whether that translates to actual change, to becoming someone who values people instead of seeing them as resources, I don't know. But Cecily, it's not my job to find out. Donovan made his choices. I made mine. We're both living with the results. 4 years after sentencing, I received news I'd been half expecting. Donovan had been released on parole. He'd served 6 years of his 9-year sentence. Good behavior, completed programs, met all requirements. He was out, living 2 states away, working construction, complying with parole. I felt nothing, no fear, no hope, no curiosity, just nothing. He was out there somewhere, and I was here, living my life, running the Meadow Project, managing my timberland, being grandmother to Cecily's daughter. Donovan had chosen Tasha over me, thought I was weak when I didn't argue, learned through prison and loss that I wasn't weak. I was strong enough to let him face full consequences. That lesson had cost him 6 years of freedom, his marriage, his relationship with Marcus, his inheritance, his mother. And it had taught me something too. That love doesn't mean accepting abuse. That being a parent doesn't mean enabling crime. That sometimes the strongest thing you can do is step back and let someone face what they've earned. Donovan chose Tasha. I chose truth. And we both had to live with those choices. 5 years after his sentencing, I was 83 when I received a letter forwarded through Cecily. From Donovan, not asking for contact, just telling me about his life. Mom, I know we can't have contact. I'm writing through Cecily because I need you to know something. I'm working construction, living in a small apartment, paying restitution to Meadow, going to therapy twice a month, building a life that's honest. It's hard. I make $18 an hour, live paycheck to paycheck, have no savings, no prospects, no family except occasional emails with Cecily. But Mom, I'm not committing fraud, not lying, not stealing, just working and trying to become someone who wouldn't do what I did. I heard about the Meadow Project, about the work you're doing with Lisa and Meadow, about the kids you've helped. You turned what I did to you and what I did to Meadow into something good, something that protects other kids. Mom, that's who you've always been, someone who builds good things from bad situations. I destroyed what you built, tried to steal your timberland, helped steal from a child, chose Tasha and fraud over you in honesty. You let me face consequences, didn't rescue me, didn't enable me, just stepped back and let me learn the hard way. People told you that was cruel, that mothers don't send sons to prison. But Mom, if you hadn't, if you dropped charges, if you'd shown mercy, I'd have kept going, kept stealing, kept hurting people. Prison saved me, not from punishment, from myself, from becoming someone who'd hurt people forever because I never faced real consequences. I chose Tasha over you, thought you were weak. I was wrong about everything. You were the strongest person in my life, and I threw that away for money and Tasha's approval. I'm not asking for a relationship. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just saying thank you for being strong when I needed you to be, even though it meant losing me. Donovan. I read the letter once, then filed it with the others. Documentation of a journey I hadn't wanted to take but had navigated with integrity. Donovan understood now, understood what his choice had cost, understood that my silence hadn't been weakness but strength. Good, let him understand. Let him rebuild somewhere else. Let him become someone different. But we were done, permanently. That chapter was closed. I'd given him everything once. He'd thrown it away. I'd stepped back and watched him destroy himself, watched him choose Tasha, watched him face consequences. And I'd built something good from the wreckage, the Meadow Project, protected timberland, a life of integrity. Donovan chose his path. I chose mine. And I'd never regret protecting myself from someone who saw me as weak when I was actually strong enough to let him face the truth. That was the lesson. That was the ending. He thought I was weak. He learned I wasn't. And that knowledge, hard-earned through prison and loss, was the only inheritance he'd ever get from me. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. 6 years after Donovan's release from prison, I was 85 years old when something happened that I never expected. Cecily called me early one morning, her voice shaking. "Aunt Geneva, I need to tell you something before you hear it from someone else. It's about Donovan." My heart sank. What did he do now? Nothing bad, something complicated. Aunt Geneva, he's sick. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors say he has maybe 6 months. He asked me to tell you, not to ask for anything, just so you'd know. I sat down slowly. My son was dying. The son I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. The son who'd chosen Tasha over me, who'd committed fraud against me and a child, who'd gone to prison. How long has he known? 3 months. He didn't want to tell you until he was sure. Aunt Geneva, he's not asking to see you. He made that very clear. He just thought you deserved to know. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet house thinking about Donovan dying. About the fact that in 6 months, I'd have no son. No family except Cecily and her children. Part of me felt nothing. We'd been strangers for so long. He destroyed our relationship so thoroughly. But another part, the part that remembered him as a child, as the baby I'd held after his father died, as the young man I'd been proud of before Tasha, that part hurt. I called my therapist, Dr. Yolanda Price. I'd been seeing her since the first fraud case, working through the family trauma. "Yolanda, Donovan is dying. Cancer, 6 months, and I don't know how to feel." "How do you feel?" "Sad, but also nothing. We've been estranged so long. He's already been gone from my life for over a decade. Does it matter if he's physically gone too?" "Only you can answer that. Geneva, the question isn't whether you should feel something. The question is there anything you need to say to him before he dies? Anything that would bring you closure?" I thought about that for days. Was there anything I needed to say to Donovan? Anything unfinished? Finally, I called Cecily back. I want to see him, once, not for reconciliation, just to look him in the eye and know I gave him one last chance to be honest with me. Cecily arranged it. Donovan was living in a hospice facility 2 states away. I drove there with Cecily, my heart pounding the entire way. Donovan looked terrible, gaunt, gray, clearly dying. He was 58 but looked 75. "Mom," his voice was weak, "I didn't think you'd come. I'm not here for you. I'm here for me, so I can look at you one last time and know exactly what you chose." I know what I chose. I chose fraud. I chose Tasha. I chose to see you as a resource instead of my mother. Mom, I've had a lot of time to think about that, about what I threw away. And I can't fix it. I can't undo what I did. I can't become someone who deserves your forgiveness. I can only tell you I understand now what you were trying to teach me, that actions have consequences, that people aren't resources, that family means protecting each other, not exploiting each other. You learned that in prison, after destroying multiple lives, after stealing from me and a child. Donovan, understanding is worthless when it comes too late. I know, Mom, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for a deathbed reconciliation. I just wanted you to know I see it now. I see what you were, what I had, what I destroyed, and I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't give me back the relationship we could have had. Sorry doesn't restore what you stole from Meadow. Sorry doesn't undo the decade of estrangement. I know, Mom, there's something else I need to tell you, about Tasha. I don't want to hear about Tasha. You need to hear this. When she divorced me, when I was in prison, she told me something. She admitted that the whole thing had been her plan from the beginning. Meeting me, marrying me, targeting your timberland. She researched you before we even met, found out about your assets, decided you were the perfect target. I felt cold. What are you saying? I'm saying Tasha targeted our family deliberately. She knew you had valuable timberland. She knew you were a widow living alone. She knew you'd helped me financially in the past. She saw an opportunity and she took it. Mom, I was her tool. She used me to get to you. And you let her. I did, because I was weak. Because I wanted someone to choose me after my first marriage failed. Because Tasha made me feel important and I stopped questioning her motives. Mom, I chose her over you because I was too blind to see she was using both of us. That doesn't excuse what you did. No, it doesn't, but I need you to know you weren't wrong about her, about any of it. Tasha was exactly what you thought she was, and I was too stupid to see it. I looked at my dying son, at this man who destroyed our family and was now admitting he'd been manipulated into doing it. Donovan, even if Tasha planned everything, you executed it. You created the fake company. You filed fraudulent permits. You helped steal from Meadow. Those were your choices. You can't blame Tasha for your crimes. I'm not blaming her. I'm explaining. Mom, I'm dying. In a few months, I'll be gone, and I need you to know the truth about what happened, about how we got here, not to excuse myself, just so you understand. I already understand. You chose Tasha. You chose fraud. You chose to see me as weak. Those choices cost you everything. Understanding Tasha's manipulation doesn't change that. I know. Mom, there's one more thing, about the timberland. I need to tell you something I should have told you years ago. What? Dad made me promise something before he died. I was 12. He was in the hospital. He knew he wasn't coming home. He called me to his bedside and he said, Donovan, take care of your mother, and take care of that timberland. It's your legacy. Don't ever let anyone convince you to destroy it. Promise me. Donovan's eyes filled with tears. I promised him. I promised my dying father I'd protect you and that land. And then I did the exact opposite. I tried to destroy it for Tasha's brother's scheme. Mom, I broke a promise to Dad. I betrayed both of you. I sat very still. Your father made you promise to protect me and the land. Yes, and for 30 years I forgot that promise, or I ignored it, or I convinced myself it didn't matter. But Mom, sitting here dying, I remember. I remember Dad's face when I promised. I remember feeling so important, so trusted. And I remember throwing that all away for Tasha. We sat in silence, my dying son confessing he'd betrayed not just me, but his father's dying wish. Donovan, thank you for telling me. It doesn't change anything between us, but I needed to hear that you understand the full scope of what you destroyed. I do, Mom. I have one request, just one. When I die, will you scatter my ashes on the timberland? Not because I deserve it, because it's where Dad is. Where I should have protected instead of tried to destroy. I want to go back to where I should have been all along. I thought about that request. About bringing my son's ashes to the land he'd tried to clear cut. About honoring his request when he'd honored nothing about me. I'll think about it. That's all I can ask. I left the hospice that day knowing I'd never see Donovan alive again. We'd said everything that needed saying. There was nothing left. 3 months later, Cecily called. Aunt Geneva, Donovan died last night, peacefully. He asked me to make sure you knew. Thank you for telling me. There's something else. He left a letter. For you, can I bring it over? The letter was 5 pages, handwritten, probably written over days as his strength allowed. Mom, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I want to make sure you understand some things before I couldn't tell you anymore. You were right about everything. About Tasha, about protecting the timberland, about pressing charges, about stepping back and letting me face consequences, about all of it. I spent 6 years in prison angry at you, blaming you for my situation, telling myself you were vindictive and cruel. Then I got out, started over, lived honestly for the first time in years, and I realized you'd saved me, not from prison, from myself, from becoming someone who'd steal and lie forever because I never faced real consequences. I built a small life after prison, nothing grand, but honest. I worked construction, paid my bills, made restitution to Meadow, went to therapy. And Mom, for the first time since Tasha, I felt clean, not successful, just clean. That's your gift to me. You didn't enable my fraud. You didn't rescue me from consequences. You stepped back and let me learn the hardest way possible what it means to be honest. Most people would have dropped charges, would have protected their son from prison, would have chosen family harmony over justice. You chose justice, chose truth, chose to protect a child over protecting me. Mom, that took strength I didn't understand until now. I chose Tasha over you, told you to your face, expected you to accept it and keep supporting me anyway because that's what you'd always done. You didn't argue, you didn't beg, you just protected yourself and let me face what I'd earned. I thought you were weak. I was wrong. You were strong enough to let your only son go to prison, strong enough to testify against me twice, strong enough to build something good, the Meadow Project, from the worst thing I'd done, stealing from a child. Mom, I'm dying knowing I destroyed the most important relationship in my life, knowing I betrayed Dad's dying wish, knowing I can't fix any of it. But I'm also dying knowing you were right, about everything. And if there's anything after this, I'll spend it being the son Dad asked me to be, the son who protects instead of destroys, the son who honors instead of betrays. I love you. I'm sorry. And thank you for being strong when I needed you to be, even though it cost you your son. Donovan. I read the letter 3 times, my son finally understanding everything, finally seeing what I'd tried to teach him. Years too late, after so much damage, after our relationship was irreparably destroyed. But understanding, finally. I called Cecily. About Donovan's request to scatter his ashes on the timberland. I'll do it, not because he deserves it, because the land deserves to reclaim him, to show that it survived his attempt to destroy it. We held a small service, just Cecily, her children, Lisa, Meadow, and me. We scattered Donovan's ashes in the forest he'd tried to clear cut, the forest that was still standing, still generating income, still protected. Meadow, now 15, spoke. I didn't know Donovan, but I know what he did to me, and I know what Mrs. Wallace did to stop him. Donovan tried to destroy things for money. Mrs. Wallace protected things for legacy. I'm glad the forest won. I'm glad Mrs. Wallace won. And I'm glad Donovan finally understood what he'd lost. After everyone left, I stood alone in the forest, looking at where we'd scattered Donovan's ashes. My son was gone. Our relationship had been destroyed years before his death, but he'd finally understood, at the end, what I'd been trying to teach him. That people aren't resources. That family means protecting, not exploiting. That strength sometimes means stepping back and letting someone face consequences. He'd learned those lessons too late to save our relationship. But maybe, his understanding at the end meant something. 2 months after Donovan's death, I received a package from Tasha, first communication in over a decade. Inside was a letter and a check for $180,000. Geneva. I know you hate me. You have every right to. I destroyed your relationship with Donovan. I orchestrated the fraud. I used your son to try to steal from you and from Meadow. I'm not writing to apologize. Words don't fix what I did. I'm writing because I need you to know something. I got out of prison 4 years ago, started over, got a job in accounting, built a legitimate life. And every month I've been saving money, Not for me, for restitution. This check is the $180,000 I owe to Meadow's trust. It's taken me 4 years to save it. I've lived on almost nothing, worked every extra hour I could, sacrificed everything to earn this money honestly. I'm sending it to you because I know you'll make sure it gets to Meadow, because I know you'll verify it's legitimate, because, Geneva, you're the only person I trust to handle this right. I destroyed your family. I manipulated Donovan. I stole from a child. I can't undo any of it, but I can pay back what I took. And I can tell you, you were right to press charges. You were right to testify. You were right to let us all face full consequences. Those consequences taught me what years of getting away with smaller frauds never did. That people aren't resources. That stealing has real costs. That the only way to rebuild is to face what you did and make genuine restitution. Donovan told me before he died that you were the strongest person he knew. That you tried to teach him lessons, he only understood too late. He was right. Geneva, you were strong enough to let your son go to prison, to testify against him twice, to build something good from something terrible. I wasn't strong enough to admit what I'd done until prison forced me to. But Geneva, I'm trying now, trying to become someone who earns money instead of steals it, who makes restitution instead of excuses. This check doesn't buy forgiveness, it's just acknowledgement. I stole $180,000. I'm giving it back, honestly earned, every dollar. Tell Meadow I'm sorry. Tell her I understand now what I did to her. And tell her I'm glad she has you, someone who protected her when her own family tried to steal from her. Tasha. I verified the check. It was legitimate, honestly earned from 4 years of savings. I called Lisa immediately. Tasha just paid back the full $180,000. I need to transfer it to Meadow's trust. She paid it all back. Geneva, that's... I didn't think she would. Thought we'd be getting $100 a month forever. She saved for 4 years, lived on nothing, earned it back honestly. Lisa, I don't forgive her, but I acknowledge that she did what the court ordered, made full restitution. The money was transferred to Meadow's trust, restored fully. Between the court-ordered restitution payments over the years and now Tasha's lump sum, Meadow had her full inheritance back plus interest. 1 month after receiving Tasha's payment, I was at a Meadow Project event when a teenager approached me. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. Mrs. Wallace, I'm Destiny, Tasha's daughter from her first marriage. Can we talk? I hadn't known Tasha had a daughter. Of course. I wanted to thank you for prosecuting my mom, for sending her to prison, for making her face consequences. I'm not sure I understand. My mom was a con artist my whole childhood. Small frauds, manipulating people, stealing from friends and family. She was teaching me to do the same. When I was 12, she was coaching me on how to manipulate my dad for money, how to lie to get what I wanted. Mrs. Wallace, she was raising me to be like her. Destiny's eyes filled with tears. Then she went to prison for what she did to you and Donovan and Meadow, and my dad got full custody. He put me in therapy, taught me honest values, showed me there was another way to live. I'm glad your dad helped you. But Mrs. Wallace, if you hadn't pressed charges, if you dropped them like Mom expected, she'd have gotten away with it again. She'd have kept doing fraud. And she'd have kept teaching me that was normal, that using people was okay. You stopped that. You saved me from becoming her. I sat with that revelation. I hadn't just stopped Tasha from stealing. I'd stopped her from raising her daughter to be a con artist. Destiny, I'm glad things worked out for you. But I didn't prosecute your mother to save you. I did it to protect myself and Meadow. I know, but it saved me anyway. Mrs. Wallace, my mom got out of prison and she's different. She works honestly. She pays her debts. She's trying to have a real relationship with me based on truth instead of manipulation. That's because you made her face consequences. Thank you. After Destiny left, I thought about the ripple effects of my choices. I'd prosecuted Donovan and Tasha to protect myself and Meadow. But in doing so, I'd stopped a cycle. I'd prevented Destiny from being raised as a con artist. I'd forced Tasha to rebuild honestly. I hadn't intended any of that. I'd just been protecting myself and pursuing justice. But the consequences had reached further than I'd known. 1 year after Donovan's death, Meadow was 16 and preparing for college. She called me to discuss her plans. "Mrs. Wallace, I've been thinking about my trust fund, about what I want to do with it when I turn 18. "What are you thinking?" "I want to expand the Meadow Project, use my trust money to help more kids, to create a national network." So what happened to me, and what happened to you with Donovan, doesn't happen to other families. Meadow, that's a beautiful idea, but that's your inheritance, your future. And I want to use it for something that matters. Mrs. Wallace, you turned what Donovan did to you into protection for me. I want to turn what he did to me into protection for others. That feels right. We spent the next year planning. When Meadow turned 18, she donated $400,000 of her $850,000 trust fund to expand the Meadow Project. We opened offices in 3 states, helped 42 children in the first year alone. At 87, I was running a national nonprofit funded by the very trust fund Donovan had tried to steal. The full circle was almost poetic. 2 years after Donovan's death, I was at the timberland with Cecily when she asked me something I'd been avoiding thinking about. "Aunt Geneva, you're 87. What happens to all of this when you're gone? The timberland, the Meadow Project, your legacy." "The land is already in a conservation trust. It can never be clear-cut. The annual royalties will fund the Meadow Project forever. After I'm gone, you and Meadow will co-manage the trust. The land will keep generating income and protecting children forever." So Donovan's attempt to destroy it created the exact opposite. The land is more protected now than it ever was. It's generating income that helps children instead of being liquidated for a failed resort scheme. Donovan tried to destroy his father's legacy and ended up strengthening it. Do you think about him, about what you lost? Every day, "Cecily, I lost my only child. That pain doesn't go away, but I don't regret my choices. Donovan chose Tasha, chose fraud, chose to see me as weak. I chose to protect myself and others. We both lived with those choices. And while his choices led to prison and death, my choices led to protecting children and preserving a legacy. I can live with that calculus." 3 years after Donovan's death, I was 88 when I received one final letter. From Marcus Chen, Tasha's brother, the man who'd started the whole scheme by wanting to clear-cut my timber land. "Mrs. Wallace, I'm writing from prison, still serving my 12-year sentence for the Meadow fraud. I have 4 years left. I wanted you to know something about what you did, about the consequences you created. When we targeted your timber land, I thought it was a brilliant plan. Easy money, an old woman who could be pressured, a valuable resource that could solve all our problems. You said no. We went around you. You prosecuted us. And Mrs. Wallace, that prosecution changed everything. In prison, I've had a lot of time to think about how I saw people as resources, about how I targeted vulnerable people, elderly people, children, anyone with assets I wanted, about how I convinced myself it was okay because they had more than they needed. You showed me it wasn't okay. You showed me that people fight back, that consequences are real, that seeing people as resources instead of humans has costs. I'm getting out in 4 years, and Mrs. Wallace, I'm not going back to fraud, not because I'm reformed, because you taught me that people like you exist, people who are strong enough to prosecute family, people who protect themselves and others even when it costs them relationships. I'm scared of people like you now, and that fear is keeping me honest. I can't give back what I stole from Meadow. I don't have money, but I wanted you to know you didn't just stop one fraud, you stopped a fraudster. I won't steal again because I know people like you will make me pay. Thank you for being strong, for protecting Meadow, for teaching me that victims fight back. Marcus. I read Marcus's letter with mixed feelings. He wasn't reformed, just scared. But maybe fear of consequences was enough to keep him from victimizing others. And maybe that was the real legacy of my choice to prosecute Donovan. Not just protecting Meadow and myself, but teaching people like Marcus and Tasha that victims fight back, that consequences are real. That strength sometimes looks like a grandmother who refuses to be exploited. At 88, I looked at everything I'd built from the wreckage of my relationship with Donovan. The timberland, still standing, still generating income, more protected than ever. The Meadow Project, helping dozens of children annually, funded by the very trust Donovan tried to steal. The lessons, teaching people that family doesn't mean accepting abuse, that strength means protecting yourself, that consequences teach what mercy never could. Donovan had chosen Tasha over me, had told me to my face, had expected me not to argue, to accept it, to keep supporting him anyway. I hadn't argued, I'd protected myself, and he'd thought that meant I was weak. He'd learned too late, through fraud charges, prison, losing everything, dying alone, that I wasn't weak. I was strong enough to let my only son face full consequences, strong enough to testify against him twice, strong enough to build something good from the worst thing he'd done. That strength had cost me my son, but it had saved a child, stopped multiple fraudsters, created a legacy that would protect children forever. Donovan chose his path, I chose mine. And while his path led to prison and death, mine led to protection and legacy. I'd given him every chance, every opportunity to choose differently, and when he chose fraud and Tasha instead, I'd stepped back and let him face reality. He'd thought I was weak for not fighting back, for not arguing, for not begging him to choose me. He'd learned I was strong enough to let him go, to watch him destroy himself, to build something better from the ruins. That was the final lesson, the one he'd understood only at the very end. Strength isn't holding on. Sometimes strength is letting go. And I'd let go of my son to save a child, protect a legacy, and teach a lesson that rippled further than I'd ever intended. Donovan chose Tasha. I chose truth. And that choice, painful as it was, had made all the difference. If this story touched you, please subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional stories like this. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Somewhere out there, I might be reading.